Aloha, everyone. You have joined in on our Leveraging Up Your Voice, Your Story, Your Impact podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Gary Stark, and he's with Better Aging Guide. So I am so excited to hear a little bit more about what he does, because you know what he told me? I could look younger and more beautiful. But anyway, we're going to skittle along to Gary. Gary, come on out. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're committed to.
Well, I'm a retired teacher. I taught math, science, statistics for many years, which allowed me to understand the research to develop a good, better aging guide. Background though, my wife's parents both died from Alzheimer's. And her sister was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, her younger sister, about a year ago. And last June, there was research by Dr. Dean Ornish that came out that cognitive decline could be reversed. So ever since then, that's what I've been working on. That's my passion. That's what I like to do.
Amazing. Tell me a little bit about, I know you just said that you had a family member that had Alzheimer's. And this is the purpose behind you helping to develop and support Better Aging Guide. Tell me a little bit more about that story and the why behind you getting involved.
Well, it actually started with my health before that. I was 13 years ago. I was obese, bad cholesterol, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, high triglycerides. I had all 5 factors of metabolic syndrome. And I knew I had to do something about it. My dad's health was terrible. He had a heart attack in his 50s, cancer at 60. And he died from a stroke in his early 70s. And I didn't want that to happen to me. And 13 years ago was also the year that I was first diagnosed with cancer. I've had 7 melanoma cancers. And I knew I had to turn my life around, so I started running. And I got in great shape, and I was excited to get my blood work done again. And I was surprised when I went back, none of my numbers had improved. So I knew I had to do something differently. And I did a lot of research, found some supplements that had great research behind them, but which most supplements don't have research on the actual product, just on the ingredients that go in. So this was something that I worked with, and it changed my health. And I've been working with people on that for quite a while. And then when the research came out on Alzheimer's, my wife was scared, and her whole family. She has 3 sisters, and they're nervous about what's going to happen, what's the next steps. And with my statistics and science and math background, I was able to understand a lot of research. So I've gone over, like in the program itself, I show the research behind it. And there's over 200 studies that I cite in the program after going over probably thousands. So the pile would be about 3 feet high if it wasn't digital.
You know, Gary, I would say majority of us could actually say there's someone in our life or someone that we know that has been touched with some of the diseases that you've talked about. If you could look straight into this camera and talk to the people who are listening here, what would be some of those words that you could give to them to encourage them to seek that information that you've already researched? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Number one thing is there is hope, which I didn't think there was hope a year ago. So, because the study just came out in June, and there's been other doctors. Dr. Bredesen's the main one who has had good results when he's had patients on his protocol that he developed for Alzheimer's. And one of his students, Dr. Sanderson, also has a clinic now, just where a residential clinic where kind of like not quite nursing home, but somewhat like that, where they can pay $9,000 a month for everything that they need. Where I developed this so it would be something that anyone could use. It's affordable, and it's a step-by-step program. So we start with, they take 3 cognitive assessments, and then also assess baseline tests for balance, strength, flexibility, cardio fitness, and their metabolic lab work. And then they keep track of their daily physical activity, strength training, stretching, nutrition, mental and social activity. And they decide what areas they want to work on. We recommend some blood work first. A lot in the medical community don't believe in supplements. And then there's the other side where, especially on things that we'll see on Facebook or whatever, that take this supplement, it's going to cure everything. I believe in having the blood work done to see what you're deficient in. You shouldn't be taking supplements just because someone says they're the best things out there. You need something that's going to work for you. So the best thing to do is, which we recommend, and we recommend 3 different sources for the blood work. And I've used a couple different companies for it. And the main one I like, that I recommend first because the results are pretty much immediate. They test over 100 different blood markers the first time, and then you can decide 3 or 6 months later, you set up the appointment, and then they check another 60. And then you can see some of them are the same, or a lot of them are the same. So you can see how you're improving, what you still need to improve on, and not taking things unnecessarily.
You know, Gary, so step by step and so thorough. I loved hearing that because I am a thriver of cancer. And so I did not just listen to other people. I made sure that I had my say in my life. So I chose to balance out medical, Eastern medicine, and naturopath medicine. And so I'm going to say this to you. I'm so glad that you have a very scientific approach where you take base, and that's in the blood test that they do. With all of that, what are some of the tips that you can give to our listeners to ensure that they're doing the right thing and they have control over what they are choosing to be treated with? Is that a fair question to ask?
Yes. I was surprised when I went through the research to find out things that would make a huge difference. I mean, most of the research was Alzheimer's, but it was kind of amazing that once I started working more on it, it was the same things that I was working on. You know, as I said before, I was obese. I had history of heart and cancer problems in my family. But I turned things around. And a lot of the things that I found out in the research is what helps Alzheimer's, helps the heart and everything else. So anybody can be on the program. Like my wife and I do it together. She does it mainly for Alzheimer's, to lower risk for Alzheimer's and dementia. I go out and I run like the Boulder, and I just did a Spartan race where you run, but you also do 20 obstacles, like picking up a 100-pound stone and carrying it and a whole bunch of different stuff. But there were 3 obstacles I couldn't do, and I'm working to make sure for my next Spartan race, which is in about 3 months, to make sure I can successfully complete each of the obstacles. But it's the same program for both my wife and myself. What's good for the heart's good for the brain. So in the steps that we have, because I mentioned you can work on physical activity, but there's a lot of research that shows that you need both vigorous physical activity and moderate. Same with strength training. For high intensity strength training, which scares off probably any senior. But the studies were done in a nursing facility on 70 to 80-year-olds. And part of the kit, we also hand out the hand grippers, because grip strength is is a large indicator for dementia, but it's also something that makes it tough for people to stay independent. So all adults want to make sure that they keep their cognition, they want to keep their mobility, and they want to keep their independence. So everything that I found in the research, we basically put into the program. And it's kind of daunting when you start, because there's so many things you can focus on, and we have where they keep track of their activity every day, social contacts, both on, making sure that they have social contacts every day, but with a diversity of who they are socializing with, and with mental activity, whether we recommend Brain HQ, but also like doing Sudoku and Wordle, and there's a lot of free things out there. It doesn't have to be an expensive $9,000 a month program. This is something, it's a one-time one-time small investment for your life, and then the steps that you can follow, and you can add things as you can change your focus as you go along on what steps to be working on next.
Wow, thank you so much, Gary, for all those tips. If our viewers and our listeners would want to connect with you, how can they do that?
So they can email me at gary@oldmountaingoat.com. I'm also doing a speech this coming Thursday at the Littleton Connect and Collaborate. And phone number, I assume, will be on here. So give me a text, an email. And so I'm looking for adults who want this for themselves, but also with Tai Chi or yoga or fitness instructors that want to build their client base, add more clients, put out videos that the participants can use, which will also be advertising for them. And I'm also looking for entrepreneurs who see the big picture and want to help bring this nationally to homes, to fitness centers, to recreation, senior centers, and living facilities. And looking for, we will come up with a certification course so people can take it into, like my mom's in an assisted living center. And I was kind of surprised that they didn't have as much devoted in this area. It is simple. There are so many simple things that adults can do to improve their chance of keeping their cognition and keeping their independence.
Wow, a lot of information that I know someone out there is just waiting for. So I'm going to say thank you so much. Gary, for joining us today, because your voice, your story, and the impact that you're making on the world truly is leveraging up our life. And I'm going to say this, I'm going to end with this from my side. You look amazing. You look amazing.
Thank you. And so do you. And I appreciate you having me and having the time to talk. Thank you.